Success is simpler than you think. Most folks spend their whole lives searching for some hidden secret, some magic formula, some fancy technique that will transform their lives overnight. They jump from one strategy to another, one book to another, and still they struggle. But what if I told you that success isn't complicated at all? What if I told you there's just one skill, one fundamental ability that separates those who achieve extraordinary things from those who merely wish they could? Let me be clear about something right up front. I'm not here to sell you on positive thinking. I'm not here to tell you about visualization. I'm not here to talk about luck or timing or connections or any of those things people point to when explaining why someone else succeeded where they failed. No, what I'm going to share with you today is much more fundamental, much more powerful, and much more accessible to every single person listening right now. The only skill you truly need for guaranteed success is personal responsibility. That's it. The ability to look at your life, your circumstances, your results, all of it, and say, I own this. This is mine. I created this, and I can create something different. The moment you grasp this truth and begin living by, it is the moment your life starts changing forever. Now, most people don't want to hear this. They want me to tell them about some shortcut or trick. They want me to give them permission to blame their boss, their spouse, the economy, the government, their parents, or anything else for their current situation. But I'll tell you what I've discovered after decades of studying successful people. They all share this one trait. They take complete, total, and absolute responsibility for everything in their lives. Personal responsibility isn't just a nice idea. It's not philosophy. It's the foundation of all achievement, all progress, all success. Without it, nothing else works. With it, almost nothing can stop you. Let me make an important distinction. Taking responsibility is not the same as taking blame. Blame looks backward. Responsibility looks forward. Blame is about punishment. Responsibility is about power. When you blame, you surrender your power. When you take responsibility, you claim your power. Big difference. When most people experience failure or setbacks, their first instinct is to find someone or something to blame. It's not my fault, they say. My boss doesn't like me. The economy is bad. I didn't have the same advantages others had. Nobody gave me a chance. On and on the excuses go. And you know what? Many of these excuses are actually valid. Life isn't fair. Some people do start with advantages. Some bosses are difficult. Some circumstances are challenging. But here's what I want you to understand. Valid excuses are still excuses, and excuses, even valid ones, keep you exactly where you are. The moment you accept an excuse, any excuse, you forfeit your power to change your situation. You're saying, my life is controlled by these external forces, and until they change, I can't change. And that, my friends, is the exact opposite of personal responsibility. Taking responsibility means saying, regardless of what happened in the past, regardless of what advantages others might have, regardless of how fair or unfair life might be, I am in charge of my responses, my actions, my attitudes, and my results going forward. Can you feel the power in that statement? It's not denying reality. It's claiming your ability to respond to reality. I had a friend who lost his job after 20 years with the same company. He was angry, bitter, felt betrayed. For months he blamed the company, blamed the economy, blamed younger workers willing to work for less. And you know what? He had some valid points, but being right wasn't helping him. Being right was keeping him unemployed, angry, and stuck. One day, he decided to take responsibility. Not blame himself, but take responsibility for his future. He said, okay, this happened. It wasn't what I wanted or planned for. But what am I going to do now? What skills do I need to develop? What opportunities should I look for? How can I use this situation to create something even better? Within 3 months of this shift, he found a position he enjoyed more than his previous job, with better pay and better hours. The circumstances didn't change. He changed, his approach changed, and that made all the difference. Let me share with you what I call the success formula. built on the foundation of personal responsibility. It's simple but extraordinarily powerful when applied consistently. First, recognize that everything in your life right now, your job, your relationships, your health, your finances, is the result of choices you've made up to this point. I know that sounds harsh, but it's also empowering. If your choices created your current reality, then different choices can create a different reality. Second, stop looking for someone to rescue you. In this world, there are no saviors, only opportunities. The cavalry isn't coming. You are the cavalry. The sooner you accept this truth, the sooner you'll start taking actions that actually improve your situation. Third, develop the habit of asking better questions. Instead of, why does this always happen to me? Ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of, who's to blame? Ask, what can I do now? Instead of, why don't I have what I want? Ask, what steps can I take today to move closer to what I want? Fourth, commit to continuous improvement. Take responsibility, not just for where you are, but for becoming better tomorrow than you are today. The successful person says, I'm responsible for my own education, for developing my skills, they don't wait for someone else to train them or develop them. They take the initiative. Fifth, accept that failure is part of the process, not evidence that the process isn't working. When you take full responsibility, you see failures as feedback, not final verdicts. They're information, not identity. They tell you what didn't work, not that you can't succeed. Most people don't realize how dramatically their lives are shaped by seemingly small daily choices. They think success requires some grand gesture, some major life change, but that's rarely the case. Success is usually the result of small, consistent choices made day after day after day. I want you to think about some. If you improve just one each day in a year, you'll be 37 times better. Not 365 better, 3,700 better, because these small improvements compound over time. That's the power of consistent, responsible choices. Consider your health. Most people don't suddenly become unhealthy overnight. It happens one meal at a time, one missed workout at a time, one late night at a time. Similarly, people don't suddenly become healthy overnight. It happens one smart food choice at a time, one workout at a time, one good night's sleep at a time. The same principle applies to your finances. People don't usually go broke because of one bad investment. They go broke because of consistent, irresponsible spending habits. And people don't usually become wealthy because of one lucky break. They become wealthy through consistent saving, investing, and increasing their value in the marketplace. Your relationships work the same way. They don't generally fall apart because of one argument. They deteriorate through consistent neglect, consistent selfishness, consistent poor communication, and they don't suddenly become amazing because of one grand gesture. They improve through consistent kindness, consistent attention, consistent appreciation. Taking responsibility means recognizing the cumulative effect of these daily choices. It means understanding that what you do today matters. It's either moving you toward what you want or away from it. There is no neutral. I often tell people, your life in 5 years will be the result of two things: the books you read and the people you associate with. Both of these are choices. Both reflect your level of personal responsibility. Both have enormous influence on your thinking, your beliefs, your actions, and ultimately, your results. What books are you choosing to read? What information are you choosing to consume? What people are you choosing to spend time with? These choices may seem small in the moment, but they are quietly, powerfully shaping your future. I know someone who wanted to start a business for years. Every time we'd talk, she'd tell me what was preventing her from moving forward. Not enough capital, not enough time, too many family obligations, too much competition. One day, I asked her to keep track of how she spent her time for 1 week. When we reviewed her log, we discovered she was watching nearly 4 hours of television every day. 4 hours. That's 28 hours a week, over 100 hours a month. I asked her a simple question. If you took just half of those television hours and put them toward your business idea, where might you be in 6 months? The look on her face told me everything. She'd never thought of it that way. She'd been telling herself she didn't have enough time, but the truth was she'd been choosing to use her time for something else. Once she took responsibility for that choice, everything changed. Today, she runs a successful business that started with those reclaimed hours. Small choices, consistently made, create your life, take responsibility for them. One of the most powerful ways personal responsibility transforms your life is by changing how you view obstacles. When you lack this crucial skill, obstacles look like roadblocks, reasons why you can't proceed, excuses for giving up or never starting at all. But when you embrace personal responsibility, obstacles become opportunities, chances to learn, grow, innovate, and distinguish yourself from others who give up when things get tough. Think about it. Every achievement worth having lies on the other side of obstacles. If success were easy, everyone would have it, and it wouldn't be valuable. The obstacles aren't preventing your success. They're part of your success. They're building your character, your resilience, your creativity, and your determination. I remember talking with a successful entrepreneur who told me about the early days of his business. 3 months after launching, his main supplier went bankrupt. Most people would have seen this as a disaster, a reason to close up shop. Instead, he saw it as his responsibility to find a solution. He reached out to 27 different potential suppliers before finding one that could meet his needs. In the process, he discovered a supplier that offered better quality at better prices than his original source. What looked like a business-ending catastrophe became a business-enhancing opportunity because he took responsibility for solving the problem rather than being victimized by it. When you face obstacles, and you will face them, we all do, ask yourself, what does this make possible? Not why is this happening to me? But how can I use this? What can I learn from this? How might this ultimately benefit me if I respond with creativity and determination? This isn't positive thinking. It's responsible thinking. It's not about pretending problems don't exist. It's about owning your response to those problems. Big difference. Remember this. The size of the person determines the size of the problem. When you grow yourself through taking responsibility, problems that would have defeated you in the past become manageable challenges. And as you continue to grow, what once seemed like insurmountable obstacles become mere stepping stones on your path to success. Let's talk about your environment, because this is an area where personal responsibility makes a profound difference. Most people seriously underestimate how much their surroundings influence their thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, and actions. They absorb the opinions, energy, and habits of those around them without even realizing it, and then wonder why they can't break free from limiting patterns. Taking responsibility means consciously designing your environment rather than passively accepting whatever happens to surround you. It means making deliberate choices about the information you consume, the conversations you participate in, and especially the people you spend time with. I've said for years that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Their attitudes, their incomes, their health habits, their ambitions, all of it rubs off on you. So ask yourself, who are your 5 people? Are they pulling you up or pushing you down? Do they expand your thinking or limit it? Do they inspire you to be more or comfort you for being less? Taking responsibility might mean making some difficult decisions about relationships. I'm not saying you should abandon friends or family who are going through tough times, but I am saying you should be intentional about who influences your thinking and how much time you spend with people who consistently drag you down. I know a woman who completely transformed her life by making one environmental change. She joined a mastermind group that met every week. Suddenly, she was regularly exposed to people who thought bigger, who didn't make excuses, who held each other accountable for setting and achieving meaningful goals. Within a year, her income doubled, she lost 30 pounds, and she started a side business she'd been talking about for a decade. Same person, different environment, dramatically different results. Your environment also includes what you feed your mind. The news you watch, the social media you consume, the podcasts you listen to, the books you read, all of this is programming your subconscious, shaping your beliefs about what's possible, what's normal, what's expected. Taking responsibility means being intentional about this programming rather than absorbing whatever happens to be available. Design your environment to support your highest aspirations, not your lowest inclinations. That's personal responsibility in action. Now let's talk about something practical. Money. Financial success is an area where personal responsibility is absolutely essential. I've found that people's financial situations almost perfectly reflect their level of responsibility. Not their intelligence, not their education, not their opportunities, but their willingness to take ownership of their financial choices and results. Financial responsibility starts with a simple truth most people don't want to face. Your current financial situation is the result of thousands of choices you've made over time. Every purchase, every investment, every hour worked or not worked, every skill developed or not developed. All of these choices have compounded to create your current reality. The irresponsible approach is to blame the economy, blame taxes, blame your employer, blame interest rates, blame anything and everything except your own choices. The responsible approach is to say, this is where I am. Now, what can I do to create a different result going forward? One of the most basic acts of financial responsibility is living below your means. It amazes me how many people consider this optional. They believe they're entitled to a certain lifestyle regardless of whether they've earned it. They use debt to finance appearances rather than using their actual resources to build substance. Taking responsibility means accepting that you can only spend what you have, not what you wish you had or what others might have. It means making choices today that serve your long-term interests rather than your immediate desires. It means understanding that financial freedom doesn't come from earning more, though that helps, but from needing less. I've known people who made $30,000 a year and built wealth because they took responsibility for living on $25,000 and investing the difference. And I've known people who made $300,000 a year and went bankrupt because they took no responsibility for living within that substantial income. The amount matters less than the attitude. Another aspect of financial responsibility is continuously increasing your value in the marketplace. Your income is a direct reflection of the value you provide. If you want more income, provide more value. Develop more skills. Solve bigger problems. Serve more people. Too many folks want their income to increase while their value remains the same. It doesn't work that way. I tell people, don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills. Don't wish for more money. Become more valuable. That's the responsible approach to financial success. Let's discuss relationships because they're such an important part of a successful life. Here too, personal responsibility makes all the quality of your relationships, whether personal or professional, reflects your willingness to take ownership of how you show up, how you communicate, how you contribute, and how you respond to others. The irresponsible approach to relationships is to focus entirely on what you're getting rather than what you're giving. It's to blame others for misunderstandings. It's to expect people to read your mind, meet your needs, and adapt to your preferences without clear communication or reciprocity. So take offense easily and hold grudges permanently. The responsible approach is to recognize that relationships are co-created. While you can't control others, you can control your own actions, reactions, and contributions. You can take responsibility for clearly expressing your needs rather than expecting others to intuit them. You can take responsibility for understanding others rather than demanding they understand you. You can take responsibility for bringing positive energy to interactions rather than draining energy from them. I know a couple who transformed their marriage with one simple change. They each stopped focusing on what the other person wasn't doing and started focusing on what they themselves could contribute. Instead of keeping score, they started competing to see who could add more value to the relationship. The shift was remarkable. The same two people, the same marriage, but a completely different experience, all because they embraced responsibility for their part in co-creating the relationship. Professional relationships work the same way. I've noticed that people who advance quickly in organizations are those who take responsibility not just for their assigned tasks, but for adding value wherever they can. They don't say, "That's not my job." They say, "How can I help?" They don't wait to be told what to do. They look for problems to solve and opportunities to pursue. They take responsibility for understanding the business beyond their immediate role. They take responsibility for building productive relationships with colleagues, not just expecting those relationships to develop automatically. Whether in your personal life or your professional life, the quality of your relationships will almost exactly match your willingness to take responsibility for them. It's one of the most reliable correlations I've observed. Speaking of professional life, let's talk about how personal responsibility transforms your career trajectory. I've counseled thousands of people over the years about career advancement, and I've noticed something interesting. Those who advance quickly and those who stagnate often have similar talent, similar education, and similar opportunities. What separates them is their level of personal responsibility. The stagnant employee waits to be noticed. The advancing employee makes themselves valuable in ways that can't be ignored. The stagnant employee does what they're told. The advancing employee does what's needed. The stagnant employee blames office politics when they're passed over. The advancing employee asks what skills or contributions would make them the obvious choice next time. I remember counseling a young man who was frustrated because he'd been in the same position for 3 years while watching others get promoted. "It's not fair," he told me. "I do my job well. I'm never late. I check all the boxes." I asked him a simple question. "Are you doing the job you want or the job you have?" He looked confused. I explained that if he wanted to be promoted to the next level, he needed to start operating at that level now, taking on projects, developing skills, and solving problems that demonstrated he was already functioning at a higher capacity. At first he resisted. Why should I do more when I'm not being paid for it? A fair question, but one that reveals an employee mindset rather than an entrepreneurial one. The responsible approach is to recognize that you're not doing extra work for your current position. You're investing in your next position. You're not giving away value. You're demonstrating value. Big difference. 6 months later, after shifting his approach, this young man was promoted. Not because the system suddenly became fair, but because he took responsibility for creating unmistakable value rather than waiting for value to be recognized. The same principle applies if you run your own business. The market doesn't owe you customers. It doesn't owe you profits. It doesn't owe you success. Taking responsibility means providing so much value that customers would miss you if you just. It means continuously improving your offerings rather than complaining about competition. It means serving people so well that they become advocates rather than merely transactions, whether you work for someone else or for yourself. Career success comes from taking responsibility for the value you create, not the hours you log or the effort you exert. The results matter. Contribution matters. Impact matters. And all of these are within your control when you embrace personal responsibility. Let's talk about your legacy, because personal responsibility extends beyond your daily life to the lasting impact you'll have on others. Many people never consider their legacy. They drift through life reacting to circumstances, fulfilling obligations, pursuing pleasures, but never asking, what mark am I leaving? How will the world be different because I was here? Taking responsibility means recognizing that you are writing your legacy every day through your choices, your actions, your words, and your priorities. It's not something that happens at the end of your life. It's something you're creating right now. The responsible approach is to assume that legacy is for important people, wealthy people, famous people, not for ordinary folks just trying to get by. The responsible approach is to recognize that everyone leaves a legacy, whether intentionally or unintentionally. The only question is what kind of legacy you'll leave, and whether it will reflect your highest values or simply the path of least resistance. I know an older gentleman who worked as a middle school teacher for 40 years. He never wrote a book, never appeared on television, never accumulated significant wealth. But at his retirement party, former students from across 4 decades showed up to tell stories about how he had changed their lives through his belief in them, his high standards, his personal interest in their success. One after another, accomplished adults stood up and said, "I am who I am today because Mr. Johnson saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself." That's a legacy. That's the result of taking responsibility, not just for teaching subject matter, but for impacting lives. That's the difference between doing a job and fulfilling a calling. What about your legacy? Are you taking responsibility for the impact you're having on others? Are you conscious of the example you're setting? Are you intentional about the values you're demonstrating? Are you thoughtful about the traditions and messages you're passing on to the next generation? The beautiful thing about embracing personal responsibility for your legacy is that it brings meaning and purpose to everyday actions that might otherwise seem insignificant. A conversation with a colleague, the time spent with a child, the way you handle a disappointment, the integrity you demonstrate when no one is watching. All these seemingly small moments contribute to the legacy you're building. For better or take responsibility for making yours a legacy you'd be proud to be remembered by. Now, let's get practical. How do you develop this essential skill of personal responsibility? It's one thing to understand its importance. It's another to cultivate it as a daily practice. Here's a simple implementation plan anyone can follow. First, eliminate blame language from your vocabulary. Words like "they made me," "I had no choice," "it's not my fault," "I couldn't help it." These phrases are responsibility repellent. They push ownership away from you and onto external forces. Catch yourself when you use them and replace them with responsibility language. I chose to, I decided, I created, I'm responsible for. Second, practice the 24-hour rule. When something disappointing or frustrating happens, give yourself 24 hours to feel however you feel about it. Be angry, be sad, be resentful. Whatever the emotion is, acknowledge it and give it its due. But when that 24 hours is up, shift your focus entirely to what you can do about the situation. No more venting, no more blaming, no more rehashing. Only problem solving, learning, and forward movement. Third, start each day with a simple question. What do I want to create today? Not what do I have to do today, or what's on my schedule today, but what do I want to create? This subtle shift puts you in the driver's seat of your life. It frames the day as something you're authoring rather than something that's happening to you. Fourth, change your relationship with feedback and criticism. When someone offers a critique, instead of defending or deflecting, ask yourself, is there even a when truth in this that I can take responsibility for? If so, focus on that one and ignore the rest. This doesn't mean accepting unfair criticism. It means looking for the actionable nugget in any feedback that helps you grow. Fifth, practice extreme ownership in one area of your life for 30 days. Maybe it's your health, your finances, a key relationship, or your work performance. For that month, take 100% responsibility for everything that happens in that area. No excuses, no blame, no justifications, just complete ownership of both your actions and your results. This focused practice will help you develop the responsibility muscle, which you can then apply more broadly. Sixth, find a responsibility partner. Someone who is also committed to growing in this area. Meet regularly to review situations where you struggled with taking responsibility and brainstorm more responsible approaches. Sometimes it's easier to spot the evasions in someone else's thinking than in your own. So this partnership can accelerate growth for both of you. Finally, study the lives of highly responsible people. Read biographies. Listen to interviews. Notice how they talk about setbacks and challenges. You'll find they rarely point fingers. Instead, they consistently ask, what could I have done differently? What did I learn from this? How can I use this experience? Model their thinking pattern until it becomes your own. Remember, personal responsibility isn't something you achieve once and are done with. It's a practice, a discipline, a way of approaching life that you must choose again and again, day after day. Some days you'll do better than others. The key is to keep returning to this foundation, especially when it would be easier to blame, complain, or make excuses. As we close, I want to leave you with this thought. Of all the skills you could develop, personal responsibility is the one guaranteed to transform every aspect of your life. Technical skills become obsolete. Market conditions change. Strategies that worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. But personal responsibility is always relevant, always powerful, always transformative. When you embrace this one fundamental skill, when you truly own your life, your choices, your responses, and your results, you place yourself firmly on the path to success. Not success as the world often defines it, with its emphasis on accumulation and status, but success is a life well lived, filled with meaning, growth, contribution, and the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you've made the most of what you've been given. The truth is, we all face limitations. We all encounter obstacles. We all experience disappointments and setbacks. The difference between those who achieve extraordinary things and those who don't isn't the absence of these challenges. It's how they respond to them. And that response is a choice. Your choice. Choose responsibility. Choose ownership. Choose to be the author of your life rather than a character in someone else's story. Choose to focus on what you can control rather than what you can't. Choose to create your future rather than lament your past. This is the path to guaranteed success. Not because it eliminates failure, but because it transforms failure from a verdict into a stepping stone. Not because it makes life easy, but because it makes you strong enough to handle life's difficulties. Not because it changes your circumstances overnight, but because it changes you. And that changes everything else over time. The skill of personal responsibility is available to everyone. It doesn't require special talent, advanced education, or privileged circumstances. It requires only the willingness to say, this is mine, I own this. I created this and I can create something different. Start today, start now. Take responsibility for something you've been blaming on external forces. Take responsibility for something you've been wishing would change. Take responsibility for creating the life you want rather than accepting the life you have. Do this consistently, and I promise you, your life will never be the same. Because when you change, everything changes.